Okay, let's start converting this building already. Here in part 3 of the Introduction to Lowpoly tutorial. So the way I start modeling this is by using splines with the combination of the snapping tool. You might or might not be aware of this technique, but in any case I suggest you stay around because I will be mentioning some more details along the process. So first of all, let's set up the snapping tool, because by default this is set, I think, just to the grid points and nothing else. So I actually take away the grid points and I just leave the vertex selection. I also go to the options, and here under the translation section I click on enable axis constraints, and by doing this now you are able to create your spline snapping to the corners of your model. Now I start doing this with one purpose, and this is that when I close the spline I convert this to editable poly, and then with this I start using the geometry to keep doing the process. If you're wondering how I did this, you just press shift and drag. This way you keep extruding the edges and you keep using the same snapping tool. You keep snapping to the stuff. So this came out pretty clean, but in some cases you can convert this to editable poly and it will not turn on like this. It will go invisible or something. It's like your object is there, but you're no longer able to manipulate it or anything. This is a 3ds Max bug, but when it happens, the way you can sort it out, let's go back. You have your spline, right? And let's say you convert it to editable poly and it goes missing, it goes invisible, and nothing is showing. If that happens, just undo that, and with the spline selected, apply a extrude to it. Here it came out well, but here's what's gonna happen. Extrude this and it's still gonna be invisible, but as soon as you start adding value, exactly this what you're seeing here is what will happen. It will extrude upwards or downwards or whatever, but it will extrude like along the same axis, and this area here you'll actually see it like blank, like totally empty. So then what you do after you extrude a portion of this, you then convert this to editable poly and you'll be able to select the border. Here I'm not able to select the border because since it came up clean I don't see any hole here, and since there's not any hole I cannot select a border. But let's try to emulate what you will actually see. It will be something like this, and then here you can grab the border and you do like this. You move this out, you just move this out. And why is that? Because now that you move this out, you can select this border that is the one you want and cap it. And now just select this border, control, select the face and get rid of this, and now you have your clean face in here. So that's the way you can sort out that problem if you ever came along it. So continuing here, yeah, you keep shift pressed and extrude it like this, move it like this, and you keep snapping to the corners, like yeah, replicating the major shape of your building. This is actually the fastest way I've found to do this so far. So now we are facing this situation here where I have these vents of the parking lots, and there are a couple of ways you can sort this out. You can either leave the holes because they will not take so much polys. Of course, you won't have this fence or the marquee as geometry. This will just be a plane with a texture like this. But you don't want to have all these fence as boxes or anything. That will hire too much the poly count. But you can leave the holes. If you do not leave the holes, the other thing you can do is add a texture. You create this division here, and between this edge and this edge, you then ungrab that section on a texture with already the vents, and you add it. But right now I'm gonna do the holes approach, so I'm gonna start making the subdivisions to make these holes. And now you connect them along the side, and at this point it seems as if I was doing exactly the same that I have on this back model, but stay with me because I will show you how I will collapse this geometry. And remember, even though for now it seems I'm replicating the same topology of the high poly model, I will not be having the back side of this. This will not have any thickness other than what is visible here. So now that I have this, I will isolate this, and I know I didn't finish, but I will try to go fast here. So the way you can simplify this is that you start collapsing it like this. You start it well and just keep doing this. In this in between, you can't really do much because the lines will continue for the holes, but in the corners, in the ends of this thing, you will certainly do it. And one thing I do recommend a lot is to use shortcuts. Always use shortcuts. They will accelerate your job a lot. Try to evaluate which are the most used tools of yours and assign shortcuts to it on the customize thing, because every time you use a shortcuts you might be saving a couple of seconds, but in the long term those couple of seconds become minutes and the minutes become hours and so on. So yeah, and yeah, you start connecting this like this. I know here I'm not following the actual thing, but I'm trying to be a little fast and just show you the way to sort this out, in order for this loop here not to continue all the way this way, because you don't need it. And doing things like this is that you start simplifying a lot of the whole building. So now let's say you open the holes here and you extrude it like this, and that's it. Like, you just need this border. And actually, let's cap this for a bit. let's say this plane is the one you're gonna be applying your vents texture. Remember, you want the texture, you don't want the actual geometry of the vent here. So this extrude should be exactly the depth up to the plane that is using the texture. In this case is the same geometry, but in case you will have these planes as a separate geometry, they should be snapped perfectly. You don't want, like in the case that I will detach this, yeah, you want this, like them exactly snapped here. You don't want them going like this. You don't want this. When making low poly geometry for this, you never want overlapping stuff like this. You want to have everything snapped perfectly. And this is because later you will be doing light maps, and these light maps are gonna take the area of each polygon and calculate your lighting upon them. So if if your geometry is overlapping like this, you might get some shadow bleeding up to this point, and it won't look good. So that's I will refer to that in a much better way once I start talking about how to create the light maps for all your geometry and stuff. But for now, just keep in mind that you don't want overlapping geometry. You want everything to be snapped exactly. Another thing I want you to be aware of is that if you see, I started creating this face of the parking lot. You can actually start anywhere that you want, but what I base myself on to do this is I always try to begin by a big section of the building to start doing this. But when you do that, you have to make sure, because sometimes these files might came from Google SketchUp. It might have been modeled in Google SketchUp or whatever, and you are not actually sure if this is totally straight if you see it from up. So if you watch it from above, you have to make sure this is totally straight, because if the very foundation of your model is like wedged, is like twisted, or yeah, something like this, and you just start replicating the thing and you don't notice this, then whatever you start extruding from this point will also get wedged. And you see, this shouldn't look like this if it's a straight wall from above. So wherever you start matching your model, you have to make sure it's a absolutely straight wall. Now what I will do, because I do not intend you to keep watching me modeling the whole building, so based on this couple of things that I've showed you so far, I will get modeling at least all the parking section and one of the floors, and I will get back to you once I have that. I'll make the comments of what I did, mention any other method that I used if I didn't mention it here already, and I'll get back with the finished building on the next video.